Samsung's $1,100 Z Flip 7 is a curious phone for several reasons. It's made some much appreciated improvements on the previous generations, but curiously has now become more flexible and versatile, managing to appeal to both those who want to use their phone a lot and those who want to use their phone a little less. This phone has two personalities, yet both are surprisingly strong. So let's talk about that. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and it's been popular recently to consider using a minimalist style phone. There have been ways to tweak the user interface of the phone you already have. There has even been purpose-built hardware whose sole purpose is to offer limited functionality. The sticking point with these phones is that generally they cost more but they offer less, so a bit of a questionable value proposition. This, the Galaxy Z Flip 7, I believe is the perfect phone for this kind of usage approach because for its very expensive price tag, you still get a full phone in there, but with the option to transform it temporarily into a unique puck of a device. Because the headline feature of the Flip 7 over its predecessors is that big old cover screen. Not only does the panel reach all the way to the edges of the phone bypassing the camera cutouts and filling the outer shell, but Samsung has doubled its refresh rate to 120Hz, almost encouraging you, like egging you on to use that cover display more, even if you don't switch to it full time. Out of the box, just like previous models, Samsung seriously limits what you can do with that outer display in terms of software. And what you need to do is go to the Galaxy Store, install Good Lock, then from there multi-star, and then enable the screen applications. Annoyingly, when you install new applications, you do need to go in here and manually set those and enable them every single time. But what this does is allow you to use apps that you would normally use on slab style phones or on the inner display on that outer one. And just quick disclaimer, they don't always scale correctly or even usably sometimes, but they are for the most part pretty decent. And actually this is how I've been using the Flip 7 for the most part in my review period. It limits just how much I doom scroll, but I can still reply to messages, check statuses and control my Spotify, all without actually having to open the clamshell. It kind of resembles a square puck. It fits in the pocket super easily and is refreshing in its form factor because it doesn't stick out the top of your pocket. And this also improves battery life because, well, you won't be using that big power-hungry internal screen. Speaking of, it's a beast of a thing. 6.9 inches, 120Hz, Full HD Plus AMOLED. You certainly do get rewarded for opening up the phone, and it's a really nice display. Maybe not quite as sharp as some of the slabs because it is Full HD Plus, not Quad HD Plus, so pixel density isn't as high. But using this thing, I could not really make out individual pixels when using it, and if it helps to save battery life, I'm all for it. And when it is open, it really does feel like a normal slab phone. There have been times where I'd use this thing when I did use it open, and I would set it down like I would a slab style phone, forgetting to close it entirely. But when you do, the hinge feels really crisp, really satisfying. And the crease is pretty minimal. It's certainly still there, and depending on your lighting conditions, you will be able to see it, you certainly feel it. But I feel like it's almost been accepted at this stage that you will have to put up with some level of crease. You know, some have less, some have more, but we haven't hit that point where you can completely iron that out. We also haven't hit a point where Samsung is starting to use silicon carbon batteries in its phones. Now, this is a slightly bigger cell than last year, 4,300 mAh instead of 4,000, and actually that was an upgrade on the previous generation's 3,700. But the charging specs have remained mediocre at 25 watt wired and 15 watt wireless, so don't expect to be able to panic charge your phone to 100% in half an hour, instead more 50% in that time. And the battery life itself is, well, it's a bit mixed really. If you do open up the phone and use it all the time, then I was ending the day with around 20% left in the tank, maybe 15%, that is with a watch connected over Bluetooth. But if you only ever use that external display, which I did for multiple days, well, I managed to get 2 days out of this phone because it generally forces you to not use your phone as much. And when you do, you're using a less power hungry display. So it kind of doubles up the efficiency. We know that a bigger cell is possible because Honor last year put a near 5,000 mAh battery in its Magic V Flip. But since we've seen Samsung play it safe with so many other smartphones with hardware in the past, particularly batteries since the Note 7 fiasco, I'm not super confident we will ever see a silicon carbon battery in a Z Flip. The hardware compromises unfortunately don't stop there though, or maybe on the surface. This year Samsung ripped out the Snapdragon chip and replaced it with its own Exynos 2500 inside the Z Flip 7, something that probably to most Europeans has them grimacing because, well, we've had to live with the Exynos Galaxies in the past, and a lot of the times there have been compromises that we've been forced to deal with, not ones we wanted to. Comparing it in benchmarks with the same generation Galaxy S25 Plus this year, which uses that Snapdragon 8 Elite that everyone loves, the Exynos 2500 actually holds up surprisingly well, and the two chips go back and forth on the synthetic test scores. This is likely helped by the fact that both phones run 12 gigs of RAM and UFS 4.0 storage, where Google insists on using outdated storage tech in its Pixel phones with the Tensor chipsets. And when loading up actual games, stuff like Genshin Impact and Project Off-Road or Project Drift series, you feel that performance as well. It's not just in the numbers. And I don't think there's any real compromise here by not going with Snapdragon. And that's a fantastic sign if rumors are to be believed, and Samsung will be putting Exynos in the next gen S series as well. Because of its two-part design, the fact that it kind of folds in half, when the SoC heats up in gaming, for example, the glass portion at the top gets quite toasty, specifically near where the cameras are, but the battery section in the bottom stays cool to the touch. It feels weird there being a contrast in temperatures, but this could actually help the health of the battery long term and also keep it charged, because heat cycling generally does not help batteries, so this could actually be a bit of a bonus by having it split in half. Believe it or not, Samsung has left last year's cameras in the Flip 7 this year, which is a bit disappointing, but to be totally honest, they weren't bad in the Flip 6. Samsung always skimps out on sensors here compared to the slabs, so you get a 50 megapixel main, the same one you'll find in the base model S25, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide with a tiny sensor, and a 10 megapixel selfie shooter, which I'm not sure I'd even bother using a lot of the time, since you can just turn the phone around and use the main camera as a selfie camera. In typical Samsung fashion, shots come out contrasty with lots of colour and very typically over-sharpened in many areas. This is something Samsung just does all the time with its images, even with the 200 megapixel sensor that it has in the Ultra class phones, and even when heavy added sharpening just isn't required. With no hardware telephoto to speak of, you'd be surprised to hear that software zoom pulls almost lossless looking 2x shots, and any further than 2x, images don't look awful, but if you know what you're looking for, you will certainly notice that it's a digital crop instead of an optical one. Samsung has also allowed us to shoot log video directly in the camera app this year, which is certainly great to see, but I don't know if many Flip buyers will ever utilize this feature. That said, thanks for not gatekeeping that mode, Samsung. Overall, you aren't buying a Flip for its great cameras, but these are certainly good enough as long as you aren't super keen with your camera. $1,100. That's a lot of money. You can buy some of the best phones on the market for that kind of price. I've even seen Samsung's own Galaxy S25 Ultra listing near enough that kind of money. And when you think about that, the Flip doesn't come across as presenting great value for money. But if cash isn't a concern and you're dead set on having a puck style phone that I spoke about before, this is a brilliant option. Though it's not an open and shut case, because you should definitely check out Motorola's Razr for this year for something a little different with some fantastic hardware. The Z Flip 7 is a good phone with some great screens and surprisingly decent performance, but with its so-so battery life, compromised cameras, and prickly price tag, you'll need to be serious about wanting a flippable to consider it over a small slab like Samsung's own Galaxy S25. Guys, are you a fan of the Flip 7? And actually, if you were to buy one, would you primarily use it with the cover display, or would you use it open and just have the smaller form factor be nice for getting in and out of your pocket? For me, it's got to be, well, I'd love to use it as a puck. But then it begs the question, why would you spend $1,100 on something like this? The form factor is great, but is that really worth the premium price? Whilst you're down there in the comments debating and letting me know what you reckon about this thing, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.